magic a kind, more like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different life. The kids who share the interest together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't.
Welcome to Hard NOC Life. This is your host, Nelson Wong. Today, I had something special to talk about, and I'm going to be interviewing Alex Lim. Without any further ado, bring on Alex here and welcome him to the show. Hi, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, Nelson?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Oh, well, okay, I'm a little under the weather, but with an exception of that, I'm doing pretty good.
Well, hopefully you'll be over the weather soon.
I hope so, too.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You are a game designer. You've created this company called Artistic Justice Games.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about, well, what was the first game that really got you interested in game design, or you wanting to make your own games?
Well, I played a lot of games when I was younger. During my high school year, I was all into, that was when Magic the Gathering came out, when they were in their alpha form, and I was all into that. I thought that was very innovative at the time, and then of course all the copycats that came after was very interesting. You know, they had tons and tons of different variations that used the same mechanics but added a little bit of their own. And then during that time, I also started playing AD&D. And then they had Masquerade, the vampire RPG as well, and that during that time, I think it was a transition between board games and video games, where video games started to take over more and more. But I started to get into both realms and just be excited about having that many games available for me in different mediums to play. And I think that's always stuck with me. So, after high school, after college, it was always that want and to need, and that need that either I want to go into a video game company and work, or create my own tabletop game. And so that's kind of where it started. One of the things I wanted to do was build a card game, kind of like Magic the Gathering, but using real martial arts. And that's kind of what started this whole momentum was, my martial arts friends, they were into gaming too, but I mean more like video games like Street Fighter and Street Fighter Alpha, Mortal Kombat, but they were like, yeah, let's do this. And there's never been a real martial arts card game, at least at that time, because they had one that was called Combat, and that was sort of iffy, and we said, let's make something that was using real martial arts. So, after all these years, we decided, well, let's see, do we want to try this ourselves? And we saw Kickstarter, and we said, hey, this is a really neat platform. So we said, maybe we can make this a reality after all. So there was a group of us. There was 6 of us in total, and we didn't form Artistic Justice Games together per se, but we formed a group to create this game to produce for people, but we had no idea how to use Kickstarter, and you could definitely tell because our first campaign we've ever run, we actually failed, and then we reran it with an 8K goal, still completely clueless at what backers really wanted, and the whole process of connecting with backers, and so I think we made $8,100, and we end up, our game costing, I think, $19,000 at minimum. But because of a lot of things that happened afterwards, the total of that project is much more. But since then, things kind of changed a bit. The structure of Artistic Justice Games transformed. My friends who were into martial arts, they decided that they rather pursue something that was more the standard full-time job path, and so I bought the rights of the game itself and went from there. So Artistic Justice Games' first game is Martial Arts the Card Game. And then following that, we were in production, and we had this idea that we really, really wanted. And I say we as in I, at that time, had other teammates join our group, and we officially became Artistic Justice Games, and we did our first campaign with that name officially, called Fairytale Games: A Battle Royale. During that campaign, we actually learned quite a lot. And it's not just about how to run a Kickstarter campaign, but how to connect with people. And that was it was a big deal because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know, from our inexperience with our first campaign, we only knew that some people might have thought Kickstarter was like a wholesale store. Some people thought of it as a way to back projects that they really want to happen. We were getting these mixed feelings, and in the beginning, we weren't even close to funding. But during the course of our 30-day campaign, near the end, we overfunded so much because of the camaraderie of all the backers joining together and just being excited about the project. So I remember making stretch goals for that campaign, and we ended up, by the end of the campaign, because of stretch goals, having to, instead of create one game and a spin-off, we ended up creating 4 core games, 2 expansion sets, 1 spin-off, and 2 spin-offs, and a bunch of art books and bonuses that were going to be given away to the backers. So, and then 40 miniatures that were free for backers for only a $65 pledge. And the backers were very happy. And but one thing we learned about that was very ambitious. The business side of it, and actually doing cost analysis and reeling in for timelines with manufacturers, that's a completely different realm that we did not expect, that we end up learning the hard way. But we're very excited about it because now we're progressing. The miniatures campaign that followed was just as exciting. All of our backers came back, and they pitched in, and they really spread the word, and that one exploded as well. So I think, with the Fairytale universe really grew because of the quality of the backers that we had. And we're still learning our lessons from it. And one of the things we had done that was really great was during our miniatures production, we had aligned ourselves with Greenbrier Games to produce the miniatures for us, and they had the experience and know-how to help guide us through all this. And I think that's something we're really appreciative of as well.
I know that the backers of the Fairytale universe and for the martial arts card game are still waiting for the final product to be released. Do you have any kind of brief update on where those projects are at right now?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot better with trying to round up our updates because we had a lot of internal struggles and a lot of weird things happened, like artists actually passing away and the tsunami and so a lot of different things. But with the martial arts campaign, it's actually in production, and we started trying to rebuild our communication with backers, and we just uploaded our first print and play for one of the decks, King of the Ring, which is our boxing deck. Tomorrow we'll be uploading our the second deck, Master of 8 Limbs, which is our Muay Thai deck, and we'll keep releasing these PNPs, and then try to keep communication open until we hear word that, hey, shipment is out, and then we can let everyone know. We've also, for that campaign, we've put in our own money to airship. What happened was we had our original manufacturer, and they kind of did things differently, and we got screwed up in the end. And so because of that, we made a decision, okay, let's just take a loss and go to a different manufacturer, which we did. And through this manufacturer, they're in production of the martial arts game right now, but their minimum quantity is much higher. So what we did was we said, okay, you know what, we'll just take the minimum quantity, and if you can, we only have about 100, 150 backers. Can you airship 150 of our minimum quantity to us, so that way the backers don't have to wait for this whole 30-day shipment overseas. And they said, okay. So what we're doing proactively is once shipment is ready and everything's produced, then we're going to airship 150 to us so then we can start fulfillment right away. Fairytale games, Battle Royale, that's actually, that and the miniatures campaign, we have some updates that we're going to be releasing this week. So I don't want to kind of give everything away right now. So, but one positive news is that there are certain things that changed that is going to let us be able to reel in our communication and be a lot more on top of things because of, we learned a lot. We really, really learned a lot this past year, and we went to Gen Con and we met a lot of great publishers that taught us a lot. So we're going to apply what we learned, and plus there was, like I said, a big change that happened that's going to allow us to spend more time really focusing on the production and manufacturing of Battle Royale, all of its stretches and expansions and spin-offs and the miniatures.
Now, your newest project, though, is something along the lines of your first project, which is the martial arts card game.
Yes.
You've just re-released a new Kickstarter project called Dragon Tides, which I believe is perhaps the first game that actually features the officially licensed images of Bruce and Brandon Lee. So now, can you tell me about the game and sort of how you got the whole Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee licensing into the game?
Absolutely. What happened was they were, on Kickstarter for a while. I guess for those few months, there were a lot of licensed products that just happened, like licensed games and whatnot. And we were like, wow, that's really cool. Well, wouldn't it be neat if we could have something in lines of this or that? And so we tried for different licenses just for fun. We never thought that we would get a response back. And one day, I got a response back from Bruce Lee LLC, and they said, okay, well, you got our attention. The information you gave us is really interesting. Let's hear about it. So I actually wrote a few emails back, and we kind of emailed back and forth for about 4 months. And then finally, we got up to doing the phone call, and I gave a quick presentation. And on the end of April of this year, I flew to California to meet with Shannon Lee and and the whole team at Bruce Lee LLC, and that was a great experience. Being a martial arts way back when, that's a fanboy dream. I actually even told Shannon, I said, please excuse me because there's going to be the business side of me and the fanboy side of me, and I don't know which side's going to take over, so I apologize in advance. And she was really down to earth, really cool. Everyone there was great, and we had ideas of what the game would be like, and that was something that we really wanted to develop. And she had told us that there had never been a game at all, not even Monopoly, of Bruce Lee or Brandon Lee. But she was very interested in wondering why we would ask for the license of Brandon as well, because I guess not many people have asked or have wanted to utilize the Brandon Lee license. Normally when you think of Brandon Lee, depending on what era you're in, you would think of the Crow. So I said, and this was something that means a lot to me. My father, he already passed in 2006, but he and I were very close, and he taught me martial arts when I was young, and he was much older than most fathers, and there was a lot of things that he had taught me that I hold dear, and I've always thought of if I do create a game with Bruce Lee, it has to be Bruce and Brandon. There has to be a father and son type game, and it would be a game that if both were still here, how their interactions would be with each other, how they would develop and grow together. So that was kind of my main goal in Dragon Tides, was to create that kind of environment. Besides, of course, the fast action movie type gameplay. But I mentioned that to Shannon, and she was very excited about it because she said that really meant something, and so that's just that alone made our team very confident that this is something that we want to do our best in, to produce at the best of our results, not just because it's the first game of theirs, like a milestone game, but because we wanted to be a representation of Bruce and Brandon as father and son in an environment or in a world where everyone could actually see them together, fighting alongside each other and growing together.
How is that changing the way you approach this Kickstarter?
Well, there's two sides of the coin, but one of the things I think is very important is, if this was not an opportunity, we would definitely not create another Kickstarter game during the time we haven't finished production of the others, because that's not exactly great for the timeline. But because of this rare opportunity, we decided, okay, well, we want to do both sides justice, our backers as well as Bruce Lee LLC. So what we've done is we've created a new team, a new project manager. We have, for the game developers, instead of us doing it internally, we have Kevin Nunn and Luther Hendricks, both who develop Sentinel Tactics as well as Schlock Mercenaries. They're the ones that are have developed the game and are continuing to develop it. We have Greenbrier Games creating the miniature figures. We have a separate art team than our Fairytale and martial arts game, working on all the artwork for Dragon Tides. Production is a separate production team for manufacture production as well, to make sure that it doesn't get in the way of the other deliverables. I think that's one of the most important thing. Second thing is, it is a licensed game. It is Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee. You don't mess with them. You have to do them justice, right? So the team understands this. Everyone on board understands this, and we have a strict deadline that we have to adhere to. So we are our ideal situation is September of 2015. That's when we should be fulfilling shipments, and that's our timeline that we have. We have to be very strict on, and we have a set schedule when everything is due. Pretty much everything is due by January. So all the rules, all the artwork, everything ready, print ready to go into production about January, and we can't pass that. So everything is under strict eye. Approvals are going to be done through Bruce Lee LLC to make sure the any philosophy of martial arts, the artwork, everything is anything in lieu of Brandon and Bruce Lee, is strict in integrity, and that the top quality of our team shines through, because it's very important to them as well. We're representing them, so with this campaign, it's a very big step for them as well as ourselves, and those are the two things that are very important about having this license.
And as of this recording of this interview, it looks like the campaign has already surpassed 75% funding, and there's still just a little less than a month to go. So what can backers and potential backers expect to come, let's say, once it hits funding? I know there's some stretch goals, but what are some of the other things that might be coming up that could potentially get more people interested in this project?
Well, you know, like you mentioned, this is the first the game from Bruce Lee LLC tabletop game. So it's a we're going to go all out. So once we hit stretches, our first stretch goal, we're going to turn all the henchman tokens into miniatures. So we have a lot of special guests that are icons that you're familiar with that will make an appearance in the game. That you know, we do have a limitation of allowance to use. And then as well, we have some great collaborators. Level 99 Games. We have Soda Pop Miniatures, Greater Than Games, Mero Productions, Japanime, you know, Greenbrier Games, of course. All of them are being involved in this, and you'll see some characters from their world make an appearance and fight alongside or against Bruce Lee and Brandon Lee in our world. One great thing about the game itself, it's an action game, and it plays with cards and it plays with dice, and you're on this board. But this board, you have different locations, and they follow a storyline. The whole game is considered a movie, and depending on the paths you take. For example, let's say you see this warehouse and you need to go inside this warehouse for this reason. Do you sneak around the back, or you go just knock down the door, guns blazing? You know, depending on your choices, you'll go to a different location board or boards together. And if you place a semi-co-op mode and one player is controlling the Tiger organization, they will have their own objectives. It's not just kill all the good guys and that's it. They'll have something that they need to do as well. The good guys will have to do more than one thing. I mean, they obviously have to survive, but they would have multiple things that they need to do. The board, some of the elements on there are interactive. Like one scene is you have an informant that's in a crate that's on a conveyor belt that's going to, you know, at the end it's going to fall off into a pit of doom or something. And there's a control room that can speed up or slow down the conveyor belt, and you can either try to go in there and control that and stop the conveyor belt, or jump on the conveyor belt, try to bring everyone down before the bad guys come in and start, you know, pounding on you. You have interactive elements such as barrels and crates you can break or throw weapons and stuff like that. It's an action movie meets arcade game, like your Final Fight, your Streets of Rage, Double Dragon kind of feel. And depending on, like, let's say in a scene, the good guys lose. You don't die. You just take a different path. Or, you know, and then if the good guys win, of course, there's another path. It's almost, you feel like it's a choose your own adventure, sort of, but very interactive. And in between, there's narration that you can level up your character. So there's a level up type aspect to it, where you can gain signature moves of each character, or you could get buffs to give you more dice for your combat rolls, or gain more health. Now, of course, if the Tiger organization wins the scene, they are able to get buffs for their characters, or they can recruit more characters, because, you know, in the very end there's the final showdown. So depending on how good or how bad you do, your final showdown might be against a whole mass of characters or just a select few. So there's a lot of dynamic and replay ability here, and as well as in Dragon Tides, the core box, the core game, you'll have a few different movies kind of linked together. And so within there, you'll have all these different scenes. And you can also customize your scenes as well. So you could say, hey, you know what, I'm going to build my own. And you could use these boards and reshape your own kind of environment and play it out the way you feel. You know, it's a lot of fun.
Maybe there could be more expansions later on and other customized scenarios down the road.
Absolutely. What we're also doing with this campaign is, since this is the first campaign of this sort for Dragon Tides, we're letting backers get involved as well. I mean, we have stretch goals that have characters that we already predefined for the story. We have expansions that can be offered when we unlock certain stretch goals. But for the most part, we also have, I guess we say, empty slots for when we're interacting with backers during this campaign. We're taking notes as well. So there might be some backers that really wish there would be this version of this character, and you know, you never know. That's what we want to do. We want to, you know, we really want to listen to backers, and we really want to involve them in this development process. Have a game that they're going to be really excited about, with all the extras that they're going to be excited about because they made it happen too. And I think that's the whole premise of what Kickstarter should be anyways. It's the backer involvement, and that's something that we hope to do with Dragon Tides. And as things ramp up after, you know, we're getting near funding. So right after funding, you know, that's when the fun begins. So you know, there's also going to be alternate costumes on player boards that allow you to use different special moves that can be either the wacky ones or the more serious ones, and you know, sky's the limit. If you like any action martial arts movie, this is the campaign to back. This is a campaign to really put your input in, because, you know, like I said, you never know. We might surprise you, and what you had just kind of said, just briefly, might make it in the game.
So now I know at least a couple of people were interested in finding out if there would be any kind of compatibility with your first project, Martial Arts, the card game, and Dragon Tides. I know that some of the artwork seems really similar, but it looked like the gameplay is quite a bit different. But I don't know if there might be any compatibility there.
Well, that's a very good question. You know, before this, the current version of Dragon Tides, there was a different iteration of Dragon Tides, and we had those rulings on BGG for a little while, but we took it down just to avoid confusion. But we had created a more of a complex dungeon crawler game. After Dragon Tides gets produced, we're actually going to circle back to that game, the ruling, and streamline it so then it is compatible with your current Dragon Tides game. It's something that we really wanted to do because the miniatures themselves are going to be designed a certain way that will allow for that expansion of rules. And because of that, you will be allowed to use some of those cards from Martial Arts, the card game, in it, so you can mix and match your own martial arts style. And the artwork that you saw that was from there, I think from our first Dragon Tide, our initial Dragon Tide launch, we just used some graphics, just kind of rehashed some graphics. But since then, we have actual artwork now specific for Dragon Tide, so we replaced those.
Now, for some of those people that might be watching, they may not be familiar with what BGG is or Dungeon Crawler is. Could you explain what BGG is and a Dungeon Crawler?
BGG is Board Game Geek. The website boardgamegeek.com. It's a big forum. It's kind of like the go-to place for everything tabletop game, board game, even video game related. And you know, any game that's ever produced should be or should have already listed themselves on there, so you could do a search for them. You know, you have to have some sort of presence on there. Because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be viewing your game, giving you advice, talking about it. It's a good community. So if, let's say, you're playing Dragon Tide, you have a question about certain rules, you could actually talk to people on there. And you know, it's a great way if you like a certain company or certain game. You can, you know, be their fans or thumb their pictures, kind of like liking in Facebook, but thumb their pictures and videos and post topics about them. It's just kind of it's a great place to expand on the culture of what that game company has. Now, a dungeon crawler, there's a lot of different definitions of a dungeon crawler. For the Dragon Tides original version, that is basically, you have a storyline, You follow different paths. It's typically it's like a dungeon. You go from one room to one room. You do different tasks. You could get treasure. You could level up. You could fight different bosses, do different quests. But we modernized it for Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee, made it more of kind of like our nowadays modern time, or even the 80s, if you wanted to say that, 80s or 90s. And basically, it offers like if you've ever played a action RPG game on a video game console, that's what it is, but on a tabletop. So basically, linking. I don't want to get too much into this now because I'll probably confuse a lot of people about what our current campaign's about. But when we do circle back to the original rules, you'll find that the gameplay is going to be totally different because it's going to involve a lot more adventuring, a lot more mission-based. You'll actually talk to a lot of people like NPCs or non-player characters, and fighting will be, battles and combat will be a lot different, and there's a lot more statistical leveling up, where certain items give you certain things that allow you to do certain things. It's you think of it this way: a dungeon crawler might take you 3 to 4 hours to play, versus Dragon Tides and our current campaign is a more fast, action-oriented game that will be, depending on how successful you are in each scene, maybe about an hour, 2 hour at max.
Why do you think there's been such an explosion of tabletop development games on Kickstarter in particular, but also just in general? It seems like tabletop games have really exploded in the last 2 years.
Now, I have my opinions on this, which is kind of funny. I'm probably going to get laughed at about this, but we go through different phases in gaming. Video game phase was home consoles, and then that was a big deal, and then because of World of Warcraft and all those MMORPGs, that became a big deal, League of Legends and all that. Now, one thing that I think ties this together is in other countries, the countries overseas, like in Asia and Europe, and it's very hard for them to get games that are from America, and vice versa, because of all the import taxes. So they would have to wait for their local comic book store to want to purchase that game, import it, and charge them like triple the price to get it. So Kickstarter was one vehicle that allowed them to get games before they were completely created, let them get involved in the creation process, and allow them to get the game directly to them without having to possibly wait for their comic book store to get it, and they'll be getting it for possibly a better price than retail. Different campaigns run different ways, especially shipping is a very big variable, but a lot of campaigns nowadays are helping at least somewhat with the VAT and the duty fees that you're paying if you live in Europe or overseas. So tying that together, MMORPGs was a big deal, especially with a lot of my friends who were in Asia. But they became a group where they sat at home and they played 24 hours a day. They actually made money selling items and stuff in the game, but they didn't have a social life that they really wanted. And I think there was a waking up during this time where people realized that, I didn't have to stay at home and just play this all the time. I can go out and play games, and it doesn't have to be video games. It could be these card games or tabletop games. And there's a few popular card games in Asia that really exploded. And because of that, it kind of guided this path. They started using tabletop games as a way to meet with other people and be social, and more and more people are doing it, and it's really spreading like wildfire, and they're using Kickstarter to get these games. And just in my opinion, I think just because of right now people being more open to the idea that, oh wow, tabletop games aren't just Monopoly, they aren't just chess. they have storylines, they have intricate gameplay mechanics, they have strategy. You know, they're actually more than just a game I play, with family members. I actually can play them with friends. They have all these different genres, horror, fantasy, action, whatever, and it's exciting. So I think everything together like that really grew the industry, and they all sought to look at Kickstarter because Kickstarter offered them the platform to get these games right at the root, right as they're being created. And if you see a game that that offers you extras that you can't get anywhere else, you're gonna want to get that game.
What advice would you have to somebody who's trying to get their game, their tabletop game or card game, onto Kickstarter? What lessons have you learned that you could share with others?
I have a lot of lessons, but I didn't follow my own advice because I'm just learning it now. But really get your game organized and ready, and get a lot of playtesting in ahead of time. When you create your Kickstarter, don't think of it as it's going to be 100% people just loving your idea and going to back you. It's not. The reality is there's going to be people who are going to want your game because of the extras, because of they can get it, and maybe they're going to resell it, maybe going to buy a couple copies for themselves as collector items. So you have to do your cost analysis. You really have to. And it's not just a cost analysis of how much it is to produce a game, but also keep in mind that you have to have minimum quantities, maximum quantities. You have to keep in mind there's going to be Amazon and Kickstarter are going to take 10% of your total. Any advertising you do, that's a cost. Any piece of artwork, that's a cost. One thing is also be very careful. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but you have great artists that you want to show off and brag about, but it's also a good idea to wait until the project is done before you show that off, because we've had experience where some of our artists were poached from us, and that left us without artists for a period of time. And things like that are not going to happen to everyone, but you just have to be prepared. And one thing is, this community is awesome. You'll find a lot of developers, publishers that are more than willing to give you good advice, and don't be afraid to ask them, because their advice is so valuable. I can't even express that. Also, when you do manufacturing, shop around. There are some that are very high quality but higher price. Some that are very cheap but the quality is about the same. Figure out what you want to do with your campaign. What's your goal? If your idea is a short-term goal, I just want to produce my game because that's my dream, then you have more options. If you say, I want to get myself grounded into this industry as a game developer, then you're going to have to plan ahead for a heavier cost, because you want the higher quality products. So when backers receive them, they're going to know that your company is going to produce quality products. So a lot of these things, I can tell you a whole book, but I'm at about 4% battery life on my laptop. So there's just so many lessons learned. Just keep an open mind. Be sure that you're thick enough skin that you can take a beating, because there are going to be a lot of people that are supportive and people who will catch you on every mistake that you have. Both are correct, because both will help mold you into a better person and better company overall. Just be open-minded and don't take things personally, because when it comes down to it, everyone wants their game to be fun and exciting, and if their company, as in your company, can keep providing these great experiences, they want your company to grow as well. And no matter how hard the tough love is, accept it, because it will help you out.
So now, before your laptop dies on us here,
Yep.
where can people find out more about Dragon Tides?
If you go to Kickstarter, it's under, you do a search for Return of the Dragon. We kind of labeled it that way, but it's it's definitely there. You could go to our website, artisticjusticegames.com. You could go. We have a Facebook for Dragon Tides. We have a Twitter for Artistic Justice Games. I mean, you can find us pretty much anywhere. We're going to be running a Board Game Geek contest on the 20th, so you could find information on there. The Kick Track, you can find us as well. So definitely search around. We're kind of everywhere, spreading around. So definitely check us out. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks to Alex for showing up here on Hard NOC Life, and check out Dragon Tides on Kickstarter at Return of the Dragon, and we will see you next time.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard NOC Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard NOC Life, but not the chica kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share the interest together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments, and the lectures. Fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC.